So a quick video on the Hotend Carriage, just showing you assembly from parts that I have. There'll be more details coming later, but this should at least get you guys started. So here's the carriage assembled and mounted, and we'll quickly walk through the setup process. Hopefully this will make it easier for you guys. So starting off, you have the actual carriage. Now this is the version 1, or the pre-release one. The one that's on there is the final one, so there'll be slight differences, and I'll call those out. First thing you want to do is take your M325s and just start them in here if you can, loosely. Just makes it easier later when you're putting it on. Get your M3 nuts pushed in here. Now it's hard to see, but you'll want to make sure that they actually go in all the way, and the corner of the M3 nut actually goes to the side, so that way the M3 nut sits flat inside the hole. Again, you can just thread your M325 or longer just through all of these, just to make sure that the nut is sitting in the right place and that you can see it through the hole, right? And you want everything aligned before you start getting it up onto the 10mm rods here. You can do the micro switch as well. That'll help you get things out of the way. Just put one zip tie to hold that wire out of the way while you're mounting it. It makes it easier to do it while it's on the table here or your bench. That's it for that part. So what you're going to do is, and it's hard to show on mine, but I'll do that. What you're then going to do is actually going to put it on the 2 rods. I can't push this out of the way, but if you'd imagine, it goes straight down and basically just slides as that one's sliding right over the rods and sits there. You then take your LM 10UU and you basically just push it in there. It is a very tight fit, so you might use your force. You can kind of here, let me show on this side. You can kind of push it against the other plastics like that and try to hammer it and tap it in a little bit. That helps too. If you have wide enough channel locks, you can press them together, but it is a tight fit. You'll then take your M325 and go ahead and tighten it. Don't tighten it all the way yet. Just kind of loosely tighten it there, and get that nice and fitted so it doesn't move too much. You then have your M435 bolt that you can use, and then you take the M435 and you just stick it right through those slots. You might have to push it down a bit if you got some plastic stuck in there, but the M335 should fit right through, and you can see they come down just like little posts down here. In the meantime, once you got that set up, just leave it as it is. You want to take your hot end, and you want to take just the metal part, and I'll show that in a second. I don't have a spare clamp on me at the moment, but you'll see the this blue piece here is the E3D clamp, and when you go around the back, you'll see in a minute here, but there's basically 2 M3, I believe same thing, M325 screws, one here, one on the other side, and the clamp basically fits just like a clamp, one part on the back, one part on the front. You'll go ahead and clamp that in. There's a M3 nylock nuts sitting back here with my fingers. I'll show that in a minute. And then go ahead again, tighten that down. Don't tighten it all the way, just kind of put it there so at least it's holding this. You don't want this moving too much, but at least holds that heat break in place. Once you got that done with the clamps, you'll basically have you'll have this piece sitting on your bench with the clamp, and then separately go ahead and take the heatsink duct, which is this piece with the wings here that comes out, right? The wings, and it has this little ducting piece that goes around. You'll have that separately, right? So take that, mount your 40mm fans on there with grill if you want to use the grills. Make sure you put the nuts on the back. Again, M3 nylock nuts at the back. These are probably M316s, should be fine. Most cases, maybe M320s if you have a thick grill on there. So go ahead and mount that, so you'll now have your heatsink duct with the fans on both sides. So now you have the heatsink duct with the fans, you have the clamp with the hot end, and what you'll do is you'll then separately on the bench, right, take your layer fan duct, your 40-20 fan, And then take your, again, if you want to use a grill or not, and then take your angled brackets, make sure that they're the steeper angled brackets, right, with your angle going downwards. Don't put these backwards, right? So this goes vertical up and down, and then the fan is at about a 45-degree angle here. And then you'll take your, these I believe are about, these are M330s, right? So take your M330s, again, a grill if you want to use one, put them through with the nylocs in the back. Now these actually do have, I can see kind of nylock traps or nut traps in the bottom, right there. So that makes it easy to mount that. The nut doesn't spin when you're putting this in, right? Get that M330 in there, and you'll basically have three pieces, right? So you'll have, or four. You have the carriage mounted, and you'll have the clamp with the 3D hot end, and then you'll have, or sorry, with just the heatsink. You'll have the heatsink ducting with the two fans, right? Remember, one's in intake, so this is blowing inwards, and the one's exhaust blowing outwards. And then you'll have your layer fan down here as a separate piece, right? Two of the layer fans. Okay. Then you'll go ahead and you'll take the E3D clamp. You'll slide that right onto the two posts, right? It might be a little hard to fit, so just kind of wiggle it in there, make sure it fits. You might want to stick your M4 Allen key in there just to help hold that screw down. Use two of them if you need to. Slide that up in there, right? Then take the heatsink duct. Go ahead and slide that in as well. It does fit. The duct does fit over the entire barrel. There is enough room for it to slide right over it. Might just be a little tight depending on your tolerances, but just kind of wiggle it in there and slowly does fit in there. Again, get that heatsink duct right over the posts. Then take your M4 nuts, thread the M4 nuts and tighten that down. Don't go too crazy, you just kind of, again, get that nice and tight so it doesn't move too much. You can then mount your layer fans if you want. These are M316s, they just, or M312s actually, and they just thread right in here, right? You can use M310s as well. They don't have quite as much of a bite, so M312s seem to be good, and they just screw right in there. Again, don't over tighten these, you're just tightening right into the plastic. So you just kind of want to get these in there. And get those, again, just not too tight, but nice and comfortable so they're not moving around too much. Then once you have everything in place, you'll want to start getting the belts. You'll take your belts, you'll thread them through these little slots in here. Now if you have the rubber belts, it's not too bad, it just kind of pulls in there. Use some needle nose pliers, get them through those slots. If you have the steel belts, it is pretty difficult, so again, use needle nose pliers and pull them through. And then you'll use these clamps with M3, I think these are M325s, and then the nylock nuts on the back to clamp down on that belt, and then get everything nice in place. Right now, you don't want to tighten this yet, right? So what you want to do now is you'll slide your carriage to one side. Ideally, you want to actually use the right side. I'm not going to because I have the gauge mounted there. I don't feel like taking it off, but you'll slide it to one side, left or right, preferably the right. So it's all the way at the end, right? You want this butting as far as you can. Now this won't butt at the end because it has the end stop there. And once it's butted nice against the plastic, what you'll do is you'll take your M3s and you'll tighten these down. Now watch the nuts that are down there. Now you can kind of barely just see it, right? So remember those M3 nuts that are trapped in there. They're very hard to get to, but just make sure that they stay in place and they don't move too far. Now again, you can tighten this down before you put all the heatsink duct and everything in place, but I just found that doing that afterwards kind of helps make sure that everything's right, that I did everything right, enough to take it apart later. So just personal preference, but if you feel like it's too hard to get in here with a needle nose plier or a small screwdriver, you can tighten these beforehand. Just again, remember, watch that you're not torquing this in any way as you're putting this stuff on. That's the other part too, is you want to make sure that this is one piece and it's nice and tight as one piece before you start tightening these too far. So again, you'll want to tighten these down so it's a nice, comfortable, tight fit. Tighten the M4 post down here, then tighten the layer fans down, then come back to these M3 nuts, maybe give it a day or day or so the plastic sits, and then tighten again. Again, remember to watch this wall. You don't want to over tighten it there to where it comes off. And go around the back in a second. Again, mine's a bit of a mess, so ignore the mess and the zip ties and probe and stuff, but basically you want to take your zip ties, and there's channels in here for the zip ties to go through for the end stop wiring, and again, or any other wiring you want. There's a zip tie channel up here that runs vertical, and then there's 3 that run horizontal to help hold this cable that comes in. Again, it's a mess on mine, but you can see it in there. You can see here on the old one, it only has 2. The new one has 1 more in the middle and 1 on the side. So hopefully that helps you guys assemble the Hotend Carriage. And if you have any questions, let me know, and we'll post more detail later. Thank you for watching.